Chipmunks are the smallest members of the squirrel family. They're found in most parts of North America and Asia. Fallen logs, tree stumps, piles of brush or rock provide good homes. Seeds are the main source of food, and much of a chipmunk's daily activity is spent in collecting them. When the cheek pouches are full, the chipmunk stores the seeds in its nest or caches them on the ground, covering them with leaves and other litter. For a more complete story on the chipmunk, why not contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa? There was a time when beaver lodges like this one and the busy beavers that build them had almost disappeared from Canada because of overtrapping. But the beaver, who will always be associated with Canada's early days, has been reintroduced into many areas, and it's made a successful comeback. The beaver builds dams because he has to store his winter's food in water deep enough not to freeze. With all the wood cutting that the beaver has to do, it's fortunate that his incisor teeth never stop growing. For a more complete story of the beaver, why not contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa? The woodchuck, also called the groundhog, is one of the larger Canadian rodents. A mature adult may weigh up to 17 pounds. In winter, it depends almost entirely on body fat until April, when new plant food reappears. Like the beaver, the woodchuck's front gnawing teeth grow continuously, except during hibernation. Constant grinding trims them down. The breeding period lasts 3 months, and from 4 to 5 young are usual. In May, at about 7 weeks, the young are weaned and cautiously begin to forage on their own. However, they still depend almost entirely on their mother to warn them of impending danger. For more information on the woodchuck, contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa. The loon is also called the Great Northern Diver because of its ability to dive and swim long distances underwater. It does this to catch the small fish, which are its main food, or simply to evade its enemies. The loon's legs are so far back on its body that movement on land is slow and awkward. So the nests are very close to water. The calls of the loon, and it has several calls in its repertoire, have come to symbolize Canada's wilderness because of their lonely, haunting quality. For a more complete story of the loon, why not contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa?
The northern tundra is the home of one of the most powerful and beautiful members of the owl family, the snowy owl. The female is not as brilliant white as the male. Her plumage is barred and makes her less conspicuous against the tundra. The snowy owl's major source of food is the lemming. The availability of the lemming has a major effect on the owl population. She lays her eggs in a dent in the ground, which she scrapes herself. Incubation starts as soon as the first egg is laid. So the chicks hatch one after another, and there can be quite a difference in size between the oldest and the youngest. Striking features of the snowy owl are the feathery legs. Even the claws are covered with dense white feathers, and the large yellow eyes with their composed stare. For more information about the snowy owl, why not contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa?
The wood spider is the most accomplished of all web-building species. Recently, scientists gave these tiny creatures a variety of psychoactive drugs to observe their effects on web building. When given a minute dose of LSD, the spider's web took on an unfamiliar, minimalist structure. When given caffeine, the web structure was not affected, but the spider's behavior was. Given THC, the active ingredient in marijuana, the spider didn't build a web. It built a hammock, where it lay all day and watched the caffeine spider go. When given alcohol, the spider built a web, found a mate, and raised over 100 young. But the mate got a restraining order, and now the spider can't go within 100 centimeters of the web. The crack cocaine spider figured building webs was for suckers, waited till the caffeine spider was exhausted, then came up behind it and popped a cap in its ass. Nice web, Mr. Crack Spider. When winter came, the marijuana spider had no place to live. It ended up in the crack web as the crack spider's bitch. For more information on the crack spider's bitch, contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa.
A few interesting facts about this clever animal. Its length may be over 40 inches. Its wiliness has enabled it to thrive in agricultural areas and even in city suburbs. A pair produces only 1 litter of 4 or 5 pups per year. The breeding period lasts 3 months, and from 4 to 5 young are usual. In May, at about 7 weeks, the young are weaned and cautiously begin to forage on their own. In late November, migration to the wintering grounds of the Atlantic coast begins. For more information, contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa.